On Anglia tonight, after the break.
An uncertain future. The owners of Stansted Airport may be forced to sell up.
It's 6 o'clock and this is Anglia Tonight.
Welcome along to half an hour of news from your part of the region.
Tonight's top story, no competition. Stansted's future is up in the air after its owners are told to sell two of their southern airports.
This is an opportunity to introduce competition between the three London airports, Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted.
We'll have all of the local reaction. Also on the programme, lucky escape. The family who walked away from this wreckage virtually unscathed tell us their story.
Unloved and unwanted, the dogs who have become the latest victims of the credit crunch.
And riding on a wave of success, how Team GB is giving us all a sense of pride in our sporting achievements.
Thanks very much for joining us. First this evening, uncertainty looms over expansion plans at Stansted after its owners were told that they may have to sell the airport.
Well, the Competition Commission says BAA should sacrifice two of its three London sites to break up its monopoly.
Gatwick and Stansted are the current favourites to be sold, and the proposals have cast doubt over controversial plans for a second runway in Essex. Well, Timothy Evans has been following this story and joins us now from Stansted.
Tonight, the question everyone's asking, what's going to happen to the expansion plans for Stansted? And I think there's broad agreement in the short term. The development has probably been put on hold, but in the long term, things look far less certain. The Competition Commission produced a pretty damning assessment of BAA. BAA was criticised for a lack of responsiveness in meeting the needs of consumers, and one wonders if the fiasco at Heathrow's Terminal 5 played a part in that, but also for a lack of planning capacity, a lack of initiative in planning for the future. And there's a feeling that new owners might be far more dynamic. Well, these may only be proposals for consultation at this stage, but there's a feeling that the Competition Commission is intent on a radical shake-up, particularly with regard to London's three airports. Competition watchdogs studied the 7 BAA airports, including Stansted, and they didn't like what they saw. There were competition problems at each of the 7. Passengers and airlines were the losers. BAA owns 4 airports in England, namely Southampton, Heathrow, Gatwick and of course Stansted. It also owns Aberdeen, Glasgow and Edinburgh airports in Scotland. That's too many in the eyes of the Competition Commission. And with BAA determined to hang on to Heathrow in the south, it seems that both Gatwick and Stansted will have to be sacrificed. The Competition Commission believes there's no alternative to breaking up BAA's portfolio of airports.
But they own the three most important London airports, Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted. And in Scotland, they similarly own the 2 major airports there, Edinburgh and Glasgow. There is effectively no competition between the 3 London airports, nor between Edinburgh and Glasgow.
So Stansted could find itself with new owners. There has been speculation that Ryanair's boss Michael O'Leary could be interested in buying the Essex airport. His airline carries half of Stansted's passengers, but he's recently denied any ownership ambitions. BAA believes any sell-off will hinder government plans for increasing airport capacity in the southeast of England.
I think the Competition Commission need to face facts that their report today, in challenging not just BAA structure but also government policy, is very likely to delay the very thing which is needed to improve customer experience most, which is having the right airport capacity in the right place.
With the summer holiday season still at full peak, it's very much business as usual at Stansted. Passengers today gave us their views on ownership of the airport.
I don't think the passengers would notice a massive difference, but it really depends on how much the new owners are willing to invest into the airports.
Do you think passengers would notice the difference?
No, not really. Not really.
I don't really think it does matter. You know, I think that the service as it is fine. And if the new people can make it better, that would be good as well. But otherwise, I think it's fine as it is.
It's not just BAA which comes under fire from the Competition Commission. Today's report criticises the government, the planning system and aviation regulators. The proposed sell-off is now the subject of consultations. The debate will continue over the coming months. When it comes to future expansion at Stansted, there are two distinct elements. The first is making greater use of the existing runway. That proposal has already gone to a public inquiry. The second is far more controversial. That's a proposal to build a second runway. Opposition, though, to both proposals is likely to remain undiminished in the local area, as Matthew Hudson has been finding out.
A small celebration at the Three Horseshoes pub at Molehill Green. Music and dancing courtesy of the Thaxted Morris men. The pub and the homes of many of its regulars are under threat from the proposed second runway at nearby Stansted. News that BAA may have to sell the airport has been seen here as, at the very least, a breathing space.
Well, it certainly throws a spanner into the works, but I think it does more than that. In the past, they've only been able to argue that they could finance Stansted if they could get cross-subsidy from Heathrow and Gatwick. And of course that would be possible when it's sold off.
At times, bitter opposition to BAA's plans has been underway for 6 years now. In the highways and byways of this part of Essex, posters opposing the expansion are everywhere you look. It's an area of charming villages and pretty cottages. Local people are long since used to planes passing close overhead. But most think a far larger airport would blight the landscape. If the scheme did go ahead, Andy Cousins' 15th century cottage would find itself almost right up against the perimeter fence.
We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop just because someone else has taken it over.
So that might actually lead companies to think twice about buying the airport.
If they were intending to build a second runway, yes.
Few here are taking anything for granted, but it's provided food for thought along with the pub grub. Fingers are crossed the Competition Commission's final report will order a breakup of BAA's monopoly. This campaign has been going on for so long now that for many of those involved it has become practically a way of life. Now they're hoping that if BAA is forced to sell Stansted, they'll be able to make whoever buys it dance to their tune. Matthew Hudson, Anglia News at Molehill Green near Stansted Airport.
How much might you need to buy Stansted Airport? Well, it's been suggested anywhere between £1 and £2 billion. If you have slightly more in the bank, 2 to 3 billion, that could just buy you Gatwick. Now, already some potential buyers have been identified, some of them from overseas, and there's also a group led by Manchester Airport. All this comes at a time when there's something of a debate within the aviation industry about the purpose of airports like this. Some people say they should simply be a means of getting people from their cars onto planes and up into the air as soon as possible. Others say they should almost be part of the holiday experience, with opportunities for people to have a meal, have a drink, and to go shopping as well. They're very much businesses in their own right. Today's findings don't really contribute to that debate, but they're very much part of the background to it. Now, these consultations will now continue over the next few months. It'll be next year before we know whether these proposals have survived intact.
OK, thanks very much, Tim. Now, a family from Bedfordshire have been talking about their astonishing escape from serious injury after their car plunged 30 feet off an embankment, landing just inches from the edge of Loch Ness.
Mandy and David Holmes from Leighton Buzzard and their 9-year-old son Harry walked away virtually unhurt after the accident during their holiday to Scotland. Now, safely back at home, they've been talking to our reporter Neil Bradford.
They're not exactly the holiday snaps the Holmes family were hoping for. Their 4-day break to Scotland came to a dramatic end on day one, when they pulled into a lay-by to take one final look at Loch Ness.
And all of a sudden there was this whack from behind, and the car sort of skidded to the right, and there were some rocks on top of the cliff face, and we hit the rock and it launched off through a wooden fence. And before it hit the floor, it hit a rock halfway down. And the car spun about 3 or 4 times, and it landed on its roof.
The estate car they hired eventually came to a rest 30 feet on the shoreline below, just inches from the water's edge.
We all undone our seatbelts, and was all conscious. And Harry got out through the boot because he couldn't fit with me. No. And so was all in the back by then, because all the doors were all damaged. We couldn't get out. And so what we did, I had to kick in the back passenger window. And we kicked it in, took about 5 goes to get it smashed, and me and Mandy crawled out of there.
We could hear it hissing, we could hear everything hissing, so it was just like, get out and get away from the car. So the adrenaline just started pumping, and we just, you kicked the window in and got us out. And I just remember getting out of the car and couldn't believe it. Harry was standing there and David was standing there, and it was just like, wow, we've just survived, you know. I remember looking up at the cliff as well, and there's all these people on the cliff.
Unable to believe what had happened, the family returned to the scene the following day. David's own mobile phone footage clearly showing how different things could have been.
It does seem really unreal at times, doesn't it? I mean, when we saw the picture, and we did actually go back to the scene of the crash the next morning before we came home. It was just like we had to go and see it, really, to say, well, just wanted to see it with our own eyes. Because it happened so quickly when we got into hospital so quickly.
Now safely back at home in Leighton Buzzard, 9-year-old Harry is looking forward to telling his new classmates of his adventure when he starts his new school in September. The family are now planning a less eventful holiday on the Spanish island of Lanzarote this October. Neil Bradford, Anglia News, Leighton Buzzard.
It really is an amazing escape. Well, some of the day's news in brief now. An 85-year-old man has died after a fire at a house near Wellingborough. The blaze started in the early hours of this morning at Park Avenue in Raunds. The man hasn't been identified yet. An investigation is underway.
2 people are still in hospital this evening following the coach crash near Oldham Towers, which left 1 man dead. Accident investigators are looking into how the bus from Cambridgeshire carrying 71 migrant workers left the road and careered down an embankment. They all worked at a fruit farm in Lutton near Peterborough.
Police in Peterborough are asking for witnesses after 2 boys aged under 10 were sexually assaulted as they played in a local park. It happened just after 6 o'clock on Saturday evening at Woodfield Park in Welland. The 14-year-old boy has been arrested and bailed in connection with the incident.
The clean-up after last weekend's annual balloon festival at the racecourse in Northampton is expected to cost more than £15,000. Litter picking, as well as damage to marquees and tents, have contributed to the cost. Last year, the bill for replacing grass at the venue ran to £11,000, and it was hoped that this year would be less expensive.
Now, one of the oldest people in Britain has been celebrating her 107th birthday today. Beatrice Ranson from Earls Barton in Northamptonshire was born the year Queen Victoria died. She married at the age of 22 and had 2 children. They're now both in their 80s.
Isn't that marvellous?
Wow, she looks good on it, doesn't she?
She does,
Absolutely.
It's great.
OK, well, on to the weather forecast. Precious little sunshine around today still. Those showers keep coming, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's likely to change either. And David, I hear that the scorer at the Northants County Ground has worked out they've lost around 1,000 overs of cricket this summer because of the dreadful weather. Not that we're blaming you, of course.
No, not at all. Yeah, 1,000 overs, that's quite a lot. And right on cue, just as you come to me, it starts to rain yet again. So I suspect if they were playing cricket today, that would be yet another over that was missed. Although I have to say, I don't think they've got off too badly this summer. I was looking back in the record books. June 1975, so summer 1975, it actually snowed on the cricket. 6 inches of snow at Buxton in the Derbyshire versus Lancashire game, and it even snowed as far south as the cricket in Essex and at Lord's in London. So I don't think they've had it too bad this summer, and certainly a little bit less rain than we had last year. Anyway, what have we got coming up? Well, showers now, showers tomorrow, a few showers on Friday, but hopefully we've got a dry day on Saturday. And for the rest of the bank holiday weekend, well, it's looking just a little bit mixed, but not a complete washout. Now, here's a picture that sums up the day. Yes, the sun just struggling to get out behind the clouds in Cambridgeshire on today's weather pictures. This place was an important staging post on the Great North Road in times gone by, and it has a cheesy connection, as this is Stilton, now nestling beside the A1M between Huntingdon and Peterborough. Now, like today, there will be some more showers around for tomorrow, but we're hopeful there'll be a bit more in the way of sunshine. And we do need that sunshine because it has been in short supply. Here are the numbers. In an average August day in the Anglia region, we'd normally expect 6.3 hours, 6 hours, 20 minutes. But this August, we've only managed 4.4 hours per day. So on average, we're down about 2 hours a day. Will that sun shine anytime soon? I'll have the full forecast for you at 6:25.
Well, David, glad to see you got your brolly handy. That's good news, isn't it?
Let's just hope we don't get any snow for the bank holiday weekend. Thanks,
don't
David.
say that, because that will happen as well, won't it? Right, still to come on Anglia tonight. Today's roundup of our stars in the Olympics.
And tough times at Forest Lodge Kennels. Why this dog's home is suffering more than most because of the credit crunch.
And we're in Milton Keynes finding out how the Olympic spirit is affecting our young sportsmen and women here.
Coming up on tonight's evening news, horror on the runway. Up to 150 are feared dead after the plane banned for their holidays burst into flames at Madrid airport. We'll have the very latest.
And running away from his sex crimes, paedophile Gary Glitter escapes to Hong Kong after refusing to come back to Britain.
All of that and more in just a few moments.
First, though, people on an estate in Northampton say their lives are being blighted by antisocial behaviour, despite efforts to improve the area.
Well, you may remember we first went to Rectory Farm Estate last year when residents complained of fly tipping, graffiti and youths causing a nuisance. Well, we send Emma Thomas back to see if anything else has changed.
You don't have to look far to find evidence of antisocial behaviour on the Rectory Farm Estate in Northampton.
Well, actually, a couple of weeks ago, someone broke into my car. Before in this area, we used to have a lot of kids and that obviously causing aggro, and there was a lot of theft that actually happened on that little pathway there in the middle of the nights. But it has calmed down a lot.
I wouldn't say there's been a marked improvement from my personal point of view. There's still quite a lot of graffiti around.
Residents have seen a reduction in fly tipping since our last visit, but say their main problem now is children riding mini motorbikes in the park and through alleyways behind houses. Jenny Bentley tried to make a stand, taking photos as evidence.
I was threatened, really. People asked what I was doing. They got abusive. One of the people on the bikes came up very close to me, spun the wheels, and I got covered in mud. I've been followed home. I've been chased home. So my children, it was concerning them. So this year I haven't been quite as enthusiastic about coming out and doing it.
The local councillor says boredom's to blame, and since the local residents' association started trying to engage with young people, their behaviour has got better.
There's been vast improvements. The nuisance, the child nuisance, has dropped somewhat. We don't have the big gangs anymore. It's made a very big difference. We did have a problem 3 or 4 years ago with drug dealers and etc. That has reduced now.
The community have been working together to try to get youngsters involved in activities. They say there's now a YMCA bus that visits here in the evenings, and they've just secured funding for a football club.
The residents feel like you're not doing enough.
That's unfortunate. We're doing a lot of work in the Rectory Farm area and on the whole of the east sector, and I'd like to offer some reassurance in that there has been a significant reduction in criminal damage incidents and criminal damage crimes, and most notably there's been a 25% reduction in criminal damage to dwelling houses.
People I have spoken to who live here say they're determined to beat antisocial behaviour, no matter how long it takes. Northamptonshire Police are setting up a legitimate mini motorcycle club nearby. The residents are just hoping people will use it. Emma Thomas, Anglia News, Northampton.
Now, we're used to hearing about how the credit crunch is starting to affect our house prices and utility bills, but you don't imagine the effects would spread as far as our pets.
But a kennels in Northamptonshire says it's having to put down more dogs than ever before because owners just can't afford to look after them. Carl Heidel reports now.
Full to capacity, Forest Lodge Kennels to the south of Northampton has never known it like this.
There are 38 dogs here, all looking for a new home. Last year, at the same time, there was only 12. That's a big difference, and it's a difference which is worrying this kennels.
In fact, the number of animals requiring rehoming is up by 50%.
People are saying it could be the credit crunch. It might be. People can't afford to keep the dogs, increasing fees, vet fees, food fees. They've lost their jobs, just have a knock-on effect. And if they lose their houses and have to go in rented accommodation, obviously the dogs are the first thing that's got to go.
So it appears that the credit crunch is really taking its toll in all walks of life. In fact, the kennels are finding it so difficult to rehome the dogs that they're starting to put some of them down. So far this year, they've put down 30. For the whole of last year, it was 18. People are just not wanting their animals.
It makes me feel sick. And that people still carry on breeding, and we've still got dogs this numbers coming in here.
Even the RSPCA has noticed a difference. In the east of England from January to July 2007, the charity received calls about 4,028 abandoned animals. For the same period this year, that figure has increased to 5,136. But fortunately, some people are bucking the trend. The Barrett family came around today to choose a dog for their children, and they chose this cross called Bruno.
It's nice and soft and it's friendly.
I think it's a shame that they haven't got, obviously they've been brought into a home and now they've, obviously for some reasons they haven't got, and I just think it's nice to rehome one rather than have one from a puppy.
But unfortunately, there just aren't enough people like the Barretts willing to offer new homes to abandoned dogs. Carl Heidel, Anglia News, Forest Lodge Kennels near Quinton.
Now, whenever we tell you stories like that, you always get in touch. So if you are interested in contacting that kennels to help rehome those dogs, well, here's what to do. The details and more information for you, all on our website. It's itvlocal.com/Anglia.
Well, now let's move on to the Olympics, to Beijing, and Victoria Pendleton's Olympic glory is just beginning to sink in. The cyclist, who comes from Stotfold in Bedfordshire, struck gold in the women's track cycling.
Well, with more reaction to that and a roundup of all the latest action by our local athletes in Beijing, here's Louise Beale.
At the family business in Letchworth yesterday, there wasn't much work going on as Victoria sprinted her way to gold. Her father and sister were over the moon, but for Victoria, it's taking a little longer to sink in.
I really don't think it's hit me yet, to be honest. I think I'm going to realise any moment now, like, quite what I've done. I mean, the last 4 years has all been about this one medal, so, you know, and it just happened, and it didn't happen easily, but everything went to plan. You know, it's more than I could have dreamed of, really.
Unfortunately, elsewhere there was disappointment for Peterborough windsurfer Nick Dempsey. The 28-year-old was second overnight in the RSX class of the event, but in today's medal race he finished 7th, leaving him in 4th place overall and missing out on a bronze. But there's hope in the women's javelin tomorrow. Goldie Sayers from Ely in Cambridgeshire is in the final of the competition tomorrow afternoon. Louise Beale, Anglia News.
So, 37 medals in total now, 16 of them gold. It's been a remarkable Olympics so far for Team GB, and it seems to have restored a real sense of national pride, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, everybody's just grinning about it. It's fantastic, isn't it? So, could this be a new era for British sport? Well, Charlotte Fisher has been meeting some of our region's sportsmen and women today and joins us now from Milton Keynes. Where exactly are you, Charlotte?
Well, I'm at Caldecott Lake in Milton Keynes, where sailing enthusiasts are just about to start one of their weekly race meetings. And of course, sailing is one of the sports we've really excelled at in the Olympics. But we've won 5 medals and 3 of them gold there. Of course, not the only sport we've done well at. We've done pretty well on dry land as well. Chris Hoy, the cyclist, has become a household name, winning 3 golds for his country. 37 medals so far and 16 golds, half of them in cycling, with rowing and sailing among our other most successful sports. The enthusiasm seems to be infectious. The newspapers have swiftly moved sport from the back pages to the front. Everyone is backing our golden boys and girls. Members of the Milton Keynes Cycling Association are obviously delighted by the success and the sport's growing profile. Phil Ray runs a cycling shop as his day job and says there's definitely been a surge in interest.
I think it's fantastic because I think it will make cycling more appealing to much more people. It'll make cycling sexy, and hopefully that'll get a lot more people out on bikes because there's nothing better than cycling.
It's made me feel quite, I don't know, proud in a way, really, as, like, you know, they're from our country and I don't know, it's just
Does
great.
it make you
great
more
news.
keen on cycling?
Yeah, it makes me, gives me more of a target where I want to get to, and yeah, it makes me more keen as well.
But they're in no doubt what's helped Britain's cyclists go for gold.
We did well in Sydney, I think, and then the funding just keeps going up, so we keep doing, because we've got the funding, we can have the best bikes and the best equipment and best training and things.
Kayaking is another sport where Team GB is doing well. We've already won a silver in the slalom, and Tim Brabants is through to the 1,000-metre final on Friday. Many of these youngsters are trying it out for the first time. Sessions at the Outdoor Education Centre in Milton Keynes are subsidised by the council to promote an interest in sport in young people. and they're already inspired by our Olympic success.
If more people will watch the Olympics, the more people will think that it looks fun.
I'd like to be in the Olympics and try and win a gold medal.
In what sport would you choose?
If I choose gymnastics, kayaking or swimming.
Wow, you've got a few years. Do you think you could get that?
Yeah.
How do you feel about our athletes getting all these medals?
It's really great for our country and everybody's happy.
And at Bedford Rowing Club, there's every reason to be happy. Team GB's rowers have won 6 medals, including 2 golds.
I think it's really inspirational watching them. I've been glued to the toe. It just gives me goosebumps and it just makes me want to do better and be more competitive. So I've absolutely loved it.
I used to row at university and I admit this is the sport I enjoy watching most. It's been a long time, but that Olympic spirit is really getting to me, I think. I might be taking up rowing again. Move over, Steve Redgrave.
OK, Charlotte, so how are we doing in the sailing then, staying on the water?
Well, we are doing extremely well. What this has done is put us at the top of the medal table for sailing. We've got 5 medals altogether, as I said, 3 golds, that's for laser, for dinghy, and in the women's crew, a silver for the 2-man dinghy and a bronze for windsurfing. But I think the thing is the change in attitude. I don't know if you remember seeing the women's 4 crying because they got a silver medal and they desperately wanted gold. It seems taking part, even doing well, isn't enough anymore. People really are going for gold. Well, I'm joined by Dick Luff from the Sailing Club here in Milton Keynes. What do you think is the reason behind this change of attitude and our success?
Well, I think a huge difference to the amount of funding that's been available and the sport being taken really seriously. And of course the total dedication of the sailors who really work so hard, and they encourage people that sail down here, for instance, to...
You think you'll get more members down here in Milton Keynes?
We definitely will, yes. I mean, it's an exciting sport, it's inexpensive. To even do 10 or 15 miles an hour in the water, close to the water, is really exciting. And when you're in total control or not, but you can't hurt yourself, that's the other thing.
It's a good sport to take up. Thank you very much. And of course, you must remember, we are an island and traditionally we have always been rather good at sailing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlotte.
Do you know, I'm quite enjoying watching the Olympics.
Oh, I think it's been so exciting. It's fabulous,
I have to
isn't it?
say, I mean, I'm not a particular sports fan, so for me to say that is quite an achievement.
It's the story of the people and their endeavour, and that's what I love to watch.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
OK, time for the weather forecast again. It's back to David.
Lightening the load for home buyers. Mortgages from Norwich and Peterborough, sponsors of Anglia Weather.
Hello again. We continue showery tomorrow, but there will be plenty of sunny spells in between those showers, all down to an area of low pressure still with us over the British Isles. But you'll just notice this little feature creeping onto the chart through Friday into the first part of the weekend. A little ridge of high pressure will settle things down and kill off a few of the showers. But you'll notice this just lurking in the winds for the start of the weekend. We have got some rain which will spoil some of the weekend, but not all of it. Tonight we have got some rain around, some pretty sharp showers around for the next couple of hours or so. They will begin to die out as we go through the night. Clear spells developing, temperatures down to 13 or 14 degrees. And then tomorrow it's a dry and bright start to the day once again. It won't be too long before once again those showers start to crop up here and there. Hit and miss, some places missing those showers during the morning, but they will continue into the afternoon. 1 or 2 sharp showers cropping up here and there as well. Temperatures, well, where they have been over the past week or so, 20 or 21 degrees. 21 is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. On into Friday, it's more sunny spells and showers. We are hoping, though, that the showers will be fewer and further between and a little lighter, but temperatures down a touch, 19 or 20 degrees in a northwesterly wind. Then on into the bank holiday weekend. Saturday will be the best day, mainly dry and sunny spells. A band of rain moving through on Sunday, but then clearing out of the way, maybe lingering in the south, and mostly dry and cloudy on bank holiday Monday.
Mortgages from the experts at Norwich and Peterborough.
A Morgan Spiced and Cola. Discover the spirit of summer. So we haven't had to worry too much about the sunburn risk over the past few days. It starts to creep up a bit as we get some sunny spells through the day tomorrow. So it's a UV index mainly of 4 around the region, 3 in some areas. That's a medium risk of sunburn. It stays medium as we go into Friday and Saturday before turning low as we go into Sunday. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
And we'll be back here tomorrow night, live at 6, with more news from around the region.
Yes, but do stay with us. Coming up next, it's the national news from Caroline, myself and all the team here tonight. Bye for now.
Good night.
At least 100 people are dead after a passenger jet crashes at Madrid airport. The Spanair flight to the Canary Islands crashed on takeoff. There are reports the left side engine was on fire. Tonight, holiday horror in Europe's worst airline accident in years. There were clear skies and good visibility when the plane prepared for takeoff. We'll have the latest from Madrid and we'll be asking what went wrong with flight JK5022.
Also on the programme, loophole in the law as Gary Glitter heads for Hong Kong, why he can't be put under Britain's toughest paedophile controls. Throwaway Britain, new calls for us to repair clothes and household goods rather than replace them. And lightning bolt, the Jamaican Speed King breaks another world record and leaves the rest of the field standing.
Good evening. At least 100 people are dead tonight after a passenger jet crashed and burst into flames while trying to take off from Madrid's main airport. The aircraft, operated by Spain's second largest airline, Spanair, was taking passengers to the holiday destination of Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands when it veered off the runway just a few hours ago. Tonight, a major rescue operation involving dozens of emergency crews is underway. 27 survivors have been taken to hospital, many of them seriously injured. Now, at this stage, it is still unclear what went so horribly wrong, but it looks likely to become one of Europe's worst airline accidents. Tim Rogers has the latest.
This was the scale of the response. Every ambulance and emergency vehicle from miles around called in to what now appears to have been the worst air disaster in Western Europe for 20 years. This was the end of holiday flight 5022. Smashed, broken and burning out of sight. Reports suggested it crashed after takeoff and then caught fire. So far, there are reports of only 26 survivors out of 172 passengers and crew on board. Emergency workers said they were calling in every available support to attend the disaster, and they said they believed there would be more than 100 dead. This is the plane that crashed, a Spanair McDonnell Douglas 82, photographed here at Madrid airport, the airport from where it took off today for the last time. The MD-82 was taking off on an internal flight from Madrid bound for Gran Canaria. It's believed that the aircraft made a first attempt to take off from Terminal 2, but had to return to the ramp. About 40 minutes later, it had a second attempt to take off. But it was then seen crashing close to the end of the runway at Terminal 4. This woman said her sister was among the survivors. She said she telephoned her earlier to say the pilot had turned around after the first attempt to take off because he was concerned about a fault. Spanair has a good safety record and the MD-82 is flown widely across the world. The exact cause of this crash still isn't clear, but aviation experts say that accidents at takeoff are often most serious.
I think it is an absolute miracle that anybody has got out alive. The takeoff of an aircraft and the position this aircraft was before it crashed means that there is very little that the pilots can actually do. It clearly came straight down into the ground, and the destruction would have been almost absolute, and then the intense fire that followed. So I think it is a miracle that anybody has come out.
Relatives and friends have been arriving at the airport for news. But while facts are still being gathered, one thing is certainly clear. This has been a major disaster. Tim Rogers, ITV News.
It's not the first time this type of aircraft, the MD-82, has been involved in such a devastating incident.
Last September, 87 passengers were killed when a flight slid off the runway in heavy rain as it landed in the resort island of Phuket.
And in 2005, a Colombian charter plane crashed in western Venezuela, killing all those on board.
Well, joining me now from Sutton is David Learmount, the safety editor from Flight International magazine. Thanks for joining us, David. A couple of accidents there that we